Welcome back to the 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. My guest is Scott Gilly, a sports and media executive with deep experience in executive search, leadership advisory, and talent strategy. He is a senior partner at Elevate Talent, where he partners with organizations across sports, media, and entertainment to recruit and develop senior leaders. Scott began his professional journey as an attorney. I'm so happy we got two lawyers here today, on this,
Exactly.
Scott,
We'll see who
including
can get a word in edgewise.
exactly, you worked on MLB salary arbitrations, you transitioned into talent consulting and business building. Scott, it's great to have you on the show. Welcome to our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show.
Thanks very much, Wayne. Great to see you as always, my friend.
It's great to see you too. I've been seeing you all over the place, all different cities and states, and we've been, going to all the different sports events that are happening across the ecosystem today, and obviously that's an important part of your role at Elevate Talent. So I'm excited to hear about, share with us all the things that you do at Elevate.
Sure, Wayne. Happy to do it. And likewise, you're always my favorite face to see at all of those industry events. But as you know, I mean, you've been doing it even, in the sports space directly even longer than I have. So there's no substitute for, getting out in person, meeting and greeting folks, talking about things you're working on and learning what others are doing and connections that might exist, between you.
So what does it mean to be a senior partner at Elevate Talent? What are some of the things that you're looking for, that you work on, and really what do you do there at Elevate?
Sure. Well, Elevate itself is a, big global sports entertainment agency that works across many different, business consulting disciplines. The one I focus in is in the executive search and leadership advisory area. And so we represent sports, media, entertainment, brands, properties, universities, and in helping them identify and recruit, talented senior executive leaders.
That's a big deal, right? Especially
Certainly a lot of fun.
especially on the collegiate side of things right now, right? I mean, let's start there. When you think about some of the things that are now happening across the college landscape, whether that's NIL, the transfer portal, all this new money that's coming to the world of collegiate sports. How does the executive recruiting world play in all of that?
So it's interesting because it's changing quite a bit, Wayne. I mean, our firm is not only involved on the search side, but Elevate is the first firm to launch an investment vehicle that's focusing on, in partnership with some, limited partner capital sources, Velocity Capital, one of our private equity sponsors. We're investing across the college sports landscape. The search side of things involves everything from, sort of athletic director roles up and down the hierarchy, coaching roles across all sports, not just the major sports, but the, quote unquote Olympic sports that, are still very important to college and university identities. And so, those searches are among the most interesting because of the dynamic you just described and in how quickly and fundamentally college sports is changing.
So what are the differences today as compared to, what would maybe what a candidate would have looked like, and now the types of people that you're looking at, and maybe are you looking in different pools to find these people now than where you used to look in the past?
Yep. All of the above, Wayne. It's a great question because I'll just give you one example. So we recently completed the athletic director search at Stanford University, and that one was uh, incredibly unique because of the unique aspects of Stanford itself. It has top flight athletic programs, but is also one of the elite academic institutions in the country. And so having an athletic director that can maintain the balance between all of those competing interests and considerations that can be in tension with one another was a challenge. And how we went about that search is indicative of how we work overall as an agency. I mean, we spent a ton of time soliciting input from various stakeholders across the universities, sort of, you know, cohort of people from, board members to alumni to current students to athletes, both present and former, and basically took all of that input in before we even began the search process. And, as a result of that input, but also those more macro dynamics we're talking about that are happening in college sports right now, we looked across all sorts of pools of potential candidates from traditional athletic director paths, which are 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, were the traditional path that you would see, the pedigree of candidate, and they would be exclusively who you would look for this role. But we ended up recruiting, and Stanford ended up hiring, John Donahoe, and he's just a perfect example. Never before have we seen someone who was the CEO of Nike, the CEO of eBay, a partner at Bain and Company, one of the premier management consulting firms in the world, before he went on to take on a college athletic director role. And, it was just driven by the revolutionary changes that are happening in college sports, as well as Stanford's unique characteristics in, as an institution of higher education.
And so, I mean, I think that's so interesting. And again, hitting on the point of like, you brought in someone who was the CEO of major companies in the past, right? To now take over as an athletic director. One of the things that I've heard and I talk about sometimes is like the athletic director today is that role is almost, it is the CEO of athletics
Right.
at that university.
Yes, very much so, and that's how Stanford was looking at it, and really more and more institutions are looking at it that way. There's this general manager role that you see sometimes at universities that are specific to, say, football or basketball or some other sports within the organization. But that athletic director is very much seen as the CEO. Some, like the University of South Florida, have actually changed the title to be the CEO of athletics, and never before sort of done or seen at that university. And so I think you hit it right on the head, Wayne, in terms of how that position's changed and the sort of qualifications and competencies that are going to make someone effective in that role are evolving in that direction.
Well, and it's also just there's actually a C level of executives. There's sort of a C suite that's
Right.
coming, right?
Yes, no question about it. And and it's true at the professional level as well. I mean, the businesses there are just becoming much more complex. Professional teams are now, multi-asset businesses that may have a real estate business, may have a technology business that underlies the operation of their sports team. Certainly, as you know from many of the diverse companies in your portfolio there at 76 Capital, analytics businesses, things that are supporting sports. These teams are investing in and owning in conjunction with the sports team itself. So, the natural outcome of that is an evolution in the executive leadership teams that are part of those organizations.
So when you look at a candidate, what are some of the traits that you look for in a candidate? Are there certain things that you're saying, I need these couple things to really be able to bring this person to the next level of the conversation?
I mean, it's certainly very much dependent on the situation and what the search is. I mean, I think as I've alluded to in professional sports, whereas someone's pedigree previously had been, very much a sports pathway. They may have moved from, a ticketing role, in sales, and then into a generating role, chief revenue officer before they moved up to become, president of a sports organization. Now you are that sports pedigree is not going to go away. I think what's going to happen is that it's going to be one set of experiences, skill sets, and competencies that are going to be put together with others within these organizations to sort of have a balanced and complementary executive team, as that is equipped to kind of meet the challenges of these evolving complex organizations.
Are you starting to see at Elevate Talent people reaching out to you for opportunities that may not have reached out to you in the past?
Definitely, there's no question. So I just pretty recently joined Elevate. I joined about 6 months ago, and I came from a firm that was focused very much in the private equity space. And so my work prior to Elevate, touched on sports entertainment, but it also crossed into other industry sectors from healthcare, technology, business services, industrials, kind of touched across all of those industry sectors. So I established and built a ton of, professional relationships with executive talent across those different industries. And it's remarkable how now that I've moved, my phone is ringing off the hook nonstop because it's such an attractive, fun industry, the sports entertainment space. People are looking to, find avenues to get in, where they can. And, clearly, it just depends on the unique situation of every search. But with the really dramatic increase of private capital investment across the whole sports entertainment ecosystem, that evolution, I think, that we talked about a bit earlier is growing and tapping into folks that have worked in other sectors of private equity owned businesses, that understand the playbook, understand operating in, kind of a leveraged environment as happens with private equity capital, behind a business. So, so there's no question it's kind of a push and pull, situation at the moment.
And over your career of bringing in and recruiting, different executives for different positions, for different positions, has there been a, what are some of the lessons, I guess, that you've learned, right? Not only just the kinds of people, but being able to match the position with the person, or what are some of the things that you really make sure that you do now?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny because, you know, with all of the technology driven change and innovation and data happening, I think what makes someone successful as an executive and professional overall really are the human factors that they bring and have always brought to the table. And so, I've always operated from a rule of hire the person, not the resume. And so, I really still just spend as much time as possible with candidates, getting to know who they are as people, how they operate in not only a professional setting, but in their, personal lives, daily, day to day engagements, to understand, some of the qualities they possess, whether it's EQ or, understanding team dynamics and leading from a place of, really inspiring teams and people, at a core, person to person level. Those traits, I think you only kind of get to know them by devoting the time, investing, the time together in different contexts to get to know them as a candidate, and be able to present them effectively as a good match for a role, for a client that's engaged our firm to conduct a search.
So how about your personal athletic background? How is that?
Way in the past, but it was there at one point.
We both say that way back when I could make that shot, I could hit that pitch, I can do a lot of stuff back then, right?
Exactly.
But thinking about that and sort of thinking about the world now that we're in, where sports is playing such an important role, where there's so many amazing opportunities for executives to really put their mark, put their stamp on the business of sports. But is there, I guess, do you see situations where this person gets it? They played at this level. They understand what it's like to be, around high level athletes, things like that. Are there those types of, maybe it's that EQ kind of stuff you were talking about?
Yeah, no, definitely. It may be a bias of mine because my background is one coming out of competitive team sports, three sport athlete until I went to college where I zeroed in on a basketball career. The experience with team sports just, I think, equips people across so many different roles and in their career. Doesn't really matter what the role is, but I think that all of the lessons you learn, um, you know by playing team sports, I think, just really sets somebody up well to be, a standout in their professional careers. And so I definitely believe that, you can kind of see the difference between somebody who gets it, as you said, and that's really kind of what it is. They just kind of understand that, how to put, what's best for them as an individual aside for what's best for the organization. They have the kind of mental toughness to sort of persevere through the ups and downs of a business. And I think probably the biggest thing that sort of, I think, people with sports backgrounds really get is, putting in the work, when no one's looking. It's not the getting credit for the work you're doing, but it's preparing yourself when no one's giving you that credit. So when the time does come to step up and meet a challenge professionally, you're not faking it. You don't have imposter syndrome because you've been doing the work every step of the way to prepare yourself to step into that challenge.
Well, I think you could talk about that a little bit. Maybe, what was it like, when the lights are not on, right? When the social media cameras aren't on, when you're taking those shots in the gym all by yourself. I think that's what you're referring to.
No question about it. And yeah, I mean, there were early mornings, late nights where I was doing exactly that. And you know, ideally, it pays off when the moment comes. But what it does more importantly, I think, is just sort of drill into your mindset, about you know how to prepare and be ready, to meet the next challenge. And yeah, a lot of hours invested both on the basketball court and then at the desk and chair. Once my professional career started, initially practicing law and now in the sports search space.
When you said you're several months into this journey at Elevate Talent, what made you individually, right, as an individual, want to move over to Elevate? What was the thing for you that was like, wow, this is the time to move over to the world of sports?
It it's it's sort of what we've talked about already. I mean, I always had a lifelong interest in sports, so my career has always been at the intersection of sports, law initially for the work you alluded to at the beginning, for Major League Baseball, the NHL, Major League Soccer over my legal career had worked across those leagues. And happy to jump into that. But, when I started in the search business, I started my own search firm uh, in the sports and entertainment space to capitalize on those relationships I had already. It was early on, I would say. There were only a few competing firms in the sports space at the time. But because it was early, there was also limited opportunities. Executive search wasn't quite as prominent as it was, as it is now at that time. And so, much like you and your, early in your investing career, not all of your, um, you kind of go where the opportunities are, where the deals are. Not all of them were in sports, I know. And so, same thing for me. I ended up doing more and more work in private equity backed businesses of all types. And that's sort of where I took my career on the search side of things. Um, and I would say probably almost about a year ago, I reconnected with my partner Liz Moulton, who was first at Korn Ferry leading their sports group, then at Spencer Stewart, where she led that sports practice on the search side. Came to Elevate, founded our search business here, and is the chair of our business globally. And I've had a ton of respect for her and known her over 10 plus years. So it was a combination of Liz and what she was building, coupled with just the changes happening in sports with the influx of private equity investment. It kind of was a perfect marriage of what I had been focusing on, for a lot of my executive search career. Uh, just great time to jump back into the sports focused search business and capitalize on that trend, but also a lot of sort of white space ahead and opportunity to kind of build, as we believe we're doing here, the best search business in the sports entertainment space.
So, in building that, and again, you talked about all these years of working in sports as a lawyer, doing what you're doing on the search side. You've done on the search side of things in sports, around sports. How important has networking and developing relationships been to your overall career?
Extremely important. I mean, it's hard to quantify exactly the importance of it, but just to give you an example, so when I was a young lawyer at Morgan Lewis and Bacchus, good Philadelphia law firm that I know is close to your heart, Wayne. Uh, I worked closely with Rob Manfred, the current commissioner of Major League Baseball, when he was a private practice, practicing law privately at a law firm. So that relationship that I started, fresh out of law school, I maintained when Rob left our law firm, joined Major League Baseball. First, we had a client relationship. Was work that we did together, me as an outside lawyer for the commissioner's office. But when I pivoted and went into the sports executive search side of things, I picked up the phone and called Rob and asked for some time together with him just to sort of understand how, he and baseball viewed executive search and what the market was like in terms of competitors, um, you know, the what was missing in terms of the service offerings out there, and did that with a number of sports industry relationships that I've developed over the years so that I could really just understand what the opportunity was, number one, and the ability to build a successful business there. And then, as you are doing that, clearly there's no substitute, for getting engagements, client opportunities. Oftentimes it's not with somebody that you have the relationship with, but you get referred by that person to someone else with a need. And that doesn't happen unless you've built really strong relationships with those people through networking and just again devoting the time.
You know, sometimes you hear about a position that's open, and then all of a sudden the new person's hired. Um,
Right.
I'm guessing it doesn't move that fast, and there's a lot of pre-work, like you were saying before with Stanford. You use a lot of work, but what is sort of the typical timing of a search that you do?
Yeah. So, I mean, what's typical, right? It's like it can be all over the map. I mean, you talk to my partner Kyle Bowlesby, who leads our college practice. Those searches happen like that. I mean, when a university needs a new coach, they need a new coach now, and so those searches happen very quickly. Um, the
How do they
again,
do that? Like, how do they do that so fast?
so so without giving away all the secret sauce here, Wayne, I'll tell you. I mean, a lot of it comes down to the kind of networking relationships, relationship building that you alluded to earlier. You know, Kyle in particular just immerses himself in the candidate pool out there. So he knows by virtue of talking to these folks day in and day out, who's looking for what next job, who's not looking, which also, enables you to move more quickly because you're not spending time sort of figuring out who the potential candidates are. You're zeroing in on those that well, and they and have built a rapport and trust with, so that when you come to them and say, hey, coach so and so, this is the opportunity you and I talked about 6 months ago, at that, Final Four when we bumped into each other. And, that enables you to move quickly. The institutions themselves are able to move quickly because they have, ideas in mind of what they would like. I mean, they know the landscape oftentimes of coaches out there that may be on the market, or they would love for them to be on the market. And so it's just kind of putting together those two sides of the equation, and then compelling the candidates out there to look at opportunities and consider them with an open mind. And it all really stems from that kind of credibility of knowing them, getting to know them.
It's fascinating. You mentioned the Final Four, and I was this past Final Four. I was so happy to see Phil Martelli Jr. getting the VCU job, and and he was telling me just how quickly that whole thing went down, and he was he's like, I took the job on social media before I even took the job in real life. He was told he took the job, and like it was like it's just crazy how some of the coaching things happen and how fast they happen. And but especially as we've been talking about, in the world of collegiate sports today, things are moving incredibly fast, and you gotta jump on and get the best candidates as fast as you can, whether that's on the athletic director side, whether that's on the coaching side of things. I mean, it's businesses moving quickly right now.
No, for sure. And then, you factor in the public interest in these organizations and these moves, these professional moves. The fandom that exists is great, but it can be unforgiving. I mean, you look at how the Knicks coaching search kind of evolved, and that's very normal for a search process to go the way that did, but it didn't meet the expectations of the fan base in terms of how that search was run and the time it took. And, that, turned into a little, PR issue for the Knicks to grapple with. That's part of it too, is that you have that outside fanatic at times, influence to deal with, as part of the search process. And that's also part of what makes it so much fun.
I can only imagine what how crazy it is. And again, I also understand, like we were, you came down to Philly for our 76 Capital Owners Box event, and the
Right.
next morning, right,
Chicken and Pete's.
at Chickies and Pete's, absolutely, you got to get the crab fries. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? So, and then the next morning we're having breakfast, we're having coffee, I guess, right at a
At the
front
New
office
York
sports
Stock
event.
Exchange. Yeah, it was literally, I think, less than 12 hours later.
That's the world we're in, right?
It is. It is. It's also what makes it fun. I mean, I made the trip to Philly, and 12 hours, less than 12 hours later, you made the trip to New York City. And yeah, I mean, it's what it takes these days to kind of compete and to cover the ground that you and I need to cover, professionally. And the good news is that we're working in a space with, a lot of great people like yourself, Wayne, that you don't mind seeing back to back in less than 12 hours. So
Well, it's very nice of you. I mean, but I mean, at the same time, if you're somebody who wants to break into the sports industry, they want to meet Scott. They want to meet Liz. They want to meet people on your Elevate team. How do you get in touch with you guys, and what's the best way to share with you who they are, and how they can, one day maybe, get some interviews
yeah,
with Elevate?
yeah, no, it's a great question, and I think the easiest answer is to just reach out. I mean, we by virtue of what we do as an executive search professional is we have to devote a lot of our time to client development efforts on the hiring side, whether it's a company or a university or a sports property. But we also have to invest the time on the candidate side to build those relationships I was alluding to earlier. The the we executive search is one of those businesses that typically is reserved to sort of the most senior levels. So there's sort of limited ability to help people that are earlier in their career, sort of mid-level or even more junior than that. Although at the event, the Owners Box event, I spent a good bit of time with a couple of college graduates and business school students, just kind of talking about career paths. So so not that you don't spend the time doing that too, but in terms of getting an opportunity to compete for some of the search engagements that we're handling, it's just, yeah, I mean, come to our website. We're all sort of listed there. I think my email and everything's on LinkedIn. It's certainly in my email signature block, but always welcome the opportunity to chat with people that are interested in breaking into sports, or considering a move if they're already there.
Well, as we start to wind down this episode of our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show, Scott, it's been great having you on the show. Scott Gilly, a sports media executive who, has unbelievable expertise in the executive search world at Elevate Talent. It's great to have you on the show. And Scott, as we wrap up here, I mean, what are some of the searches that you can talk about, maybe, or maybe you can sort of break some news if you want. Um, but I mean, who are some of some of the different positions that you're looking for right now, or that you just recently filled that you're really excited about?
Yeah, there's been a number. It's hard to choose, Wayne. I mean, we're lucky to be part of a firm that, has great presence across the sports and entertainment space, really globally. We do as much in Europe and the UK as we do here in the United States, but no breaking news to share. But we're in the middle of completing our CEO search for the USTA, the U.S. organization that governs tennis within the United States and puts on the U.S. Open here in New York every year. That's been a great search. Didn't happen as quickly as some of those college ones, nor did we expect it to. But that one's been going on since the U.S. Open. But closing in on a hire for that organization. We just closed the search for a new president of the Kansas City Royals, so that's a nice job, sort of on the heels of a similar search we did last year for the Baltimore Orioles, my hometown team down in Maryland. And then the last one I'd mention is. We did the commissioner search for the LPGA, which was a great search and one that was really had a lot of nuance and depth to it because of just where that sport is at the moment and kind of the needs in their new commissioner. So it was going on side by side with the search for the new leader of the PGA Tour. Some similar candidates in each pool, so it made it a little bit of a horse race and an interesting search. But yeah, I mean, those are a few of the many that we handle here, and kind of indicative of some of the breadth of what we do.
Well, Scott, it's been awesome having you on the show. We got to have you back when you can tell us who gets who gets some of these opportunities. It's pretty exciting, and as you said, people, if they are interested in you and Elevate Talent, they can reach out to you. Whether it's LinkedIn
Anytime.
or that's awesome. That's awesome. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining us on our show.
Thank you, Wayne. Really a pleasure to be with you, and enjoyed it a lot. Thanks again.
I'll see you at the next big sports event.
You got it, my friend. Looking forward to it.
On behalf of the entire 76 Capital team, thank you for joining us for this edition of our Sports Leadership Show. Please remember to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast network or on the 76 Capital website. You can also explore the hundreds of episodes we've produced over the past several years on those same networks. And as always, go out there and make it happen.